All right, hi and welcome to this Nordic Arrow webinar. This is day 3 in the series around VMware Workspace 1. Today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into virtual applications and desktops. Yesterday we went through the modern management, and if you didn't catch that one, we will be providing the recording and the link to the recording and the slides next week, and you'll get a link directly in your inbox. So with us today again, we have Helle for the presentation. Welcome. And again, I just want to point your attention that you are here. Please ask questions. We had a lot of good questions yesterday, so please keep up the good work. If you could use the Q&A section, that would be really awesome, because that would allow everybody to actually, see the questions and the answers all the questions being answered. If you're not comfortable with that, it's okay, put it in the chat and we'll take it from there. So let's get cracking and hear something more about the virtual applications and desktops.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen in a second. So I'm Helle, I'm from VMware. I was also on here yesterday. I'm from VMware Denmark, also covering Finland, and have a close contact with my colleagues in Sweden and Norway. Should you have any questions, Thijs will send them on to me or to Ben, who is on the, today he's the answering questions guy. But he will be presenting tomorrow. He also presented Monday. And with us, we also have Paul Whiton, who will also perhaps answer a few questions. So feel free to answer all the questions you have. There will be a panelist. And let's crack on with the presentation. I will just share my screen and put the presentation in presentation mode, I hope. There we go. So today we're going to talk about virtual apps and desktops. And I've been with VMware for 11 years and almost all, well, actually 12 years. And almost all of those 12 years, I've been working with virtual apps and desktops. So yeah, feel free to ask questions. Ben will also be able to answer them. If you want to ask a question online, raise your hand and Thijs can open for your mic so you can actually ask a question online. So VMware Workspace 1, as we've been talking about the other days, consists of a lot of different components and additions. So if we start with Workspace 1 standard, it's all about MDM and access. And then if we add Workspace 1 Advanced, on top of that, we get modern management for Mac and Windows 10 that we talked about yesterday. On top of that, if you add up to Workspace 1 Enterprise, well, we get intelligence where we can deep dive into information of our systems, and we get Horizon, which is shared desktops, virtual apps, and just-in-time management. And then you have Workspace 1 Enterprise with VDI. You get a full-blown VDI into the Workspace 1 package, but you can also go ahead and get Horizon separately, not as a part of the Workspace 1 packaging. So that's kind of the complete digital workspace. And then of course we have the add-ons, that is Workspace 1 Assist and Workspace 1 Security, which mainly relates to the more device management part of things. Excuse me. And it's not Corona, I just have a hay fever and I ran out of medication. So today we're going to talk about virtual apps and desktops. For those of you who are new here, I'll go really quick over what is VDI and what is RDSH. So, and there is also a glossary of term, PC Lifecycle Management, JMP, which is just-in-time management platform. DEM is Dynamic Environment Manager. This one is a little bit important. We used to call it UEM for, I don't even remember what that was for anymore, Unified Environment Manager or something like that. But now we're User Environment Manager. Now we're calling it DEM. So I just confused all of you. Way to go. VDI, obviously virtual desktop infrastructure, and the others RDSH, remote desktop session host. RDP is the protocol that Microsoft uses, remote desktop protocol. And then of course, VM is a virtual machine. There will be other acronyms along the way like PC over IP and BLAST and stuff, but I will explain what those are. So Windows apps still represent up to 80% of the apps in today's enterprise. And we need to deal with that. The traditional end user computing model is, well, for accessing a Windows PC is that people are in an office and the PCs are on the desk and you kind of have a one-to-one relation with a computer, be that a laptop or an office PC. If you take that and move that into accessing Windows desktops with VDI, well, it is pretty much the same, except that we've moved the desktops into the data center and virtualized them so they're living on top of our software-defined data center. And again, you can have a one-to-one relation with a desktop, and I'll get a lot more into that. You can also access Windows desktops with Remote Desktop Service Host, which is a Microsoft product. We put Horizon on top of that, and that will actually enable employees to share an operating system. So each user does not have their own operating system. They are sharing the operating system and sharing the applications and using the, and it is being presented to them as a desktop. Or we can just share the applications if they don't need the look and feel of a desktop. So we can, from an RDSH installation, share applications directly to each of the users. So that's kind of the different terms: VDI, RDSH, that is really difficult to say for a Danish person, desktop, and virtual apps. So Horizon options. There are some different options with Horizon. And these are deployment options that you can look at. We have various hosting methods. So you can have Horizon hosted on premises, or partly on premise, partly in the cloud, or in a VMware managed cloud, or at a partner managed cloud, or in Azure. With regards to the infrastructure, well, below this, in most cases, we have the VMware SDDC, the software-defined data center, or vSphere, as some of you might know it as, but SDDC spans a little broader, except for Azure, which is obviously running on Azure Hypervisor. And then there's the Horizon solution on top, where you can have Horizon 8 as perpetual, meaning that you own the license, it's yours and it's on premise. Or you can have Horizon 8 Universal, which is a subscription model of Horizon, which you can actually also have on-prem. But Horizon Universal is slightly different because it's a subscription model and it requires a cloud control plane. Then, for the VMware Partner Managed Cloud or VMware Managed Cloud, you can have Horizon DaaS, which is a different version of Horizon that is specifically for cloud providers or service providers. It's based on the old Desktone software. And then there's Horizon Cloud on Azure, which is its own little thingy where you can deploy a Horizon node on Azure, but not on any Azure. It's on actually the customer's Azure. So it's kind of bring your own cloud infrastructure for customers. So that's the different Horizon solutions that you have in there. On premises is what we have seen most up until recently, but we are beginning to see a lot more Horizon in managed clouds or in Azure. And we have beginning to see a lot more Horizon Universal. People are very interested in subscription licenses. So Horizon 8 Universal, it can be on premises, it can be on VMC or on AWS. It can be VMC on AWS, or it can be on Azure VMware Solutions, which is not Azure Hypervisor, but VMware running on Azure hardware. And then, of course, over here, it can be in a partner-managed cloud running off of your software-defined data center. If we deep dive a little more into Horizon 8 on VMware SDDC, which is what I'm going to talk mainly about today. I'm going to touch on Horizon DaaS as well, knowing that we do have some service providers online here. So I will be touching a bit on that as well. VMware Horizon 8 Windows apps and desktops has different capabilities depending on the licensing we have. So we have licensed it, as we do with most of our VMware products, in standard, advanced, and enterprise. For the standard part, you get the basics. You get VDI, you get physical PC access, you get FinApp, dynamic environment manager, standard, and then you get instant clones, vSphere, vCenter, and Blast or PC over IP. So this is what would be in a Horizon standard bundle. It will give you access to all the basics in VDI. So for some customers, this would be perfectly fine. Other customers might need the ability to use Skype or Teams optimization. They would need maybe to be able to do just virtual applications and not entire desktops, or also shared server desktops. They would need the advanced edition. And then, of course, the enterprise edition that comes with all the bells and whistles. You have Dynamic Environment Manager Enterprise, which gives you the ability to do a lot more interesting configurations for the end users. You get App Volumes, which is our take on how to deliver applications in a really quick and organized manner to your desktops. You get session collaboration. You get access to have Linux desktops and help desk tools. So these are the three main editions of Horizon. There is actually a Horizon for Linux edition that you can have if you only need Linux desktops. And there's also actually a licensing for Horizon published applications. And then, of course, the Universal goes on top of that, which gives you the ability to connect to any cloud. And I will get a little more into how that works and why Horizon Universal is interesting. So if we look at Horizon 8 Perpetual, well, you have Horizon 8 up here, where you have the licensing, the management, and the brokering. You have the Horizon Manager in here, where all the users connect to. And this is also where your licensing is, and this is where your management tools are. And then you have the virtualization layer below that, the VMware SDDC, where you have vSphere or vCloud Foundation in here. And then it's on premises. So Horizon 8 Perpetual, it's on premises. So it's either in customer's own data center, or it could be in a hosted data center, but it's not in the cloud. So VMware Horizon 8 delivers completely traditional VDI that we've been doing for a lot of years. Actually, VMware kind of came up with the idea of VDI. So some other companies like to claim that that was their idea, but they delivered shared applications, which was not VDI. So we came up with this because we had a customer, and that was back in 2007, I believe. We had a customer, a huge English bank, UK-based bank that had an affiliate in India, and they wanted, they created this infrastructure themselves where they gave these employees in India access to a virtual machine running Windows XP inside their data center in the UK. This was really cumbersome to maintain because there was no tools to handle it. And so they came back to VMware and said, could we do something here? Could we do something smarter so that we get a tool to manage all these desktops? And that's actually how VDI came to be a thing, and how VMware started out creating VDI, and the first edition called VDM 1.0 basically had automatically provisioning of these VMs, and that was about it. And then we created the whole Horizon platform from there. So that's traditional VDI. You have all the virtual machines in there with applications and operating systems. One operating system per end user and a set of applications per end user. One virtual machine per user. And you have the client devices that you can see here on the right side. And nowadays, those client devices can be anything that can run a browser, anything that can hold a Horizon client. So those could be zero clients, thin clients, laptops, mobile phones. If it's in any way useful to start a VDI from a mobile phone, well, you can do it. Nowadays, mobile phones are huge, so it makes sense. When we started out, the iPhone 4 was tiny and it kind of didn't make sense. Zero clients, this is where the other protocols that I mentioned are coming into the picture. Zero clients are running PC over IP typically. This is kind of built into the hardware of the zero client. The zero client doesn't have any real software. It has a chip, and that chip has some firmware. And the PC over IP protocol is baked into that firmware. And the only thing a zero client can do is connect to a VDI environment. And the only thing you can configure in there is how that protocol should behave. So that's a zero client. It literally doesn't have a hard disk with software on it. It only has firmware. Those are being used, initially they were being used when people needed really high graphics, but they are also being used in high security environments where it's important that the endpoint does not contain any usable information. So that's client devices connecting through the Horizon connection servers, connection brokers into the infrastructure. So accessing existing PCs is also something that we can do with Horizon 8. And you might go and ask, well, maybe not so much today, but half a year ago, you would probably have asked, why would we want to do that? Well, with a lot of people being sent home to work from home, this could be really relevant because their office PC is already there, and it's a nice way to actually be able to run all your office tools without having to get a separate computer at home. So you can connect using your personal home devices. And we saw a huge uptake of this just when the COVID-19 hit bad in the spring, and multitudes of people were sent home to work from home from companies that did not have people have devices out there. So people started working on their personal devices. And then some of these companies spun out really quickly a Horizon environment, and the personal home devices can then connect to the Horizon connection broker, which in turn will then actually broker them to the office PC. And so they can from home use Horizon in a secure manner to connect to their office PCs. And with all the tuning and stuff we can do on the various protocols that we use to connect to those. So that's an option. And one reason people were doing this was that they would actually like to stand up a proper Horizon environment, but it took time. And getting those resources was actually not easy in the beginning of this pandemic. So this could be done with existing resources. And that was really important. A lot of these customers are now taking these environments and actually changing them into full-blown virtualized Horizon environments. So Horizon JMP or JUMP, just-in-time management platform. You can learn more about that in the hands-on labs. Go look for this lab, VMware Horizon 7. It might have upgraded to Horizon 8 now, but go ahead and look at that, just-in-time management. What's in there in just-in-time management? Well, what is the big goal? The big goal is actually to be able to create stateless desktops in seconds. And now I might have to explain to some of you what persistent and non-persistent means here. So a persistent desktop is a desktop that's yours. You connect through the connection broker. First time you connect, you get a desktop, and that desktop is yours. It will be the same desktop every time you log on, and it's persistent, and it's yours every time you log on until it's deleted, and then you, well, that's kind of it. A non-persistent desktop is a short-lived desktop that exists as long as you use it. You log on, you get a desktop. When you log on, it's deleted, and next time you log on, you get a new one. There are pros and cons. A persistent desktop, you get the same experience. It's just like having a physical computer. Everything you do will be saved in there. It's really, really good for the users. It's a little more cumbersome for IT to manage those, whereas a non-persistent desktop is really good for IT because it's really easy to manage. But if we take all the good bits from a persistent desktop and copy, what do you call that? Pair it with all the good things for a non-persistent desktop, you get a truly stateless desktop. And this is good both for IT and for the end users, because for IT, it makes it easy to update and deliver applications really, really fast. It's still secure inside the data center, as is any VDI, or in the cloud. And then, of course, the non-persistent desktops have an economic side of it because it's cheaper. You don't need to have all these provisioned desktop floating around, taking up resources in your data center or in your cloud. And it's also great for the end users, the truly stateless desktops, because they can still customize it, and you can have your user experience across sessions. And that is what we're doing with the JUMP platform that is making this possible. So what the technology consists of is contextual policy management, where you actually, well, maybe we should start up here with the first thing first. It's ultra fast desktop provisioning. You can provision desktops in seconds using instant clone technology. It's real-time application delivery, and we have app volumes and can, with app volumes, deliver applications in seconds to end users as well. And then it's contextual policy management, where all the user settings, and see, whoa and behold, I didn't notice that. User environment manager, should have changed that to dynamic environment manager. But hey, dynamic environment manager creates all the contextual policies, and I'll get a little more into that in a second. So Horizon JUMP, as I said, it's really, really fast, and it consists of instant clones, app volumes, and dynamic environment manager settings. So instant clones will deliver the operating system, app volumes will deliver all the specific applications for that user, and dynamic environment manager will take care of all the settings that is related to that user. So if we look at instant Windows applications and desktops, they are built kind of like this. The user logs in. So the first step is to create the basic virtual desktop from a template. We have a master template. We create a Windows desktop, and no, we don't create one of these. We create a Windows 10 desktop. And then, of course, we go back or go on and functionally customize that basic desktop with the appropriate applications for that department the user might be in, human resources or sales or wherever. And then the user customize function, the user can customize this functional desktop. So the user can actually put their own user data on there and personalize the desktop to their need. So every user has their own personalized part of this. So it doesn't matter what desktop the user gets, as long as it's combined with the correct set of applications at the correct set of user data. And actually, even we can even give the user the ability to do user installed applications in here. And then, of course, the user uses the desktop and the user logs out. The user state, everything the user has done on this desktop during the work is then saved in by dynamic environment manager, and the desktop is destroyed. And that's kind of it. And I'm going the wrong way here. And the user logs in again, and it all starts over. And how can we do that so fast and so efficient as we claim we can, or as we can? Well, we use these three technologies: instant clones, app volumes, and dynamic environment manager. So instant clones, what is that? Well, it's a feature of our software-defined data center. It's a feature of vSphere, where what we actually do is that we start with a golden image. That is a virtual machine that has the installation that you would like it to for the operating system. It's a master, it's a template, whatever. You have the golden image, you have it in here, and it has all the settings, how you want your operating system to be, and it's optimized using our optimization guide. And you might have your line of business applications in here, things that you know all of your users need. And it's pristine, and every time you use it, you create a new version, or you create a new copy. And the golden image is then cloned out to each host, and this becomes a parent. So on each host, we have a parent for the virtual machines, and that parent is then not cloned, but forked into a virtual desktop. And what we do with VM forking is actually that we are lifting out the active memory state of a VM and copying that, which means that we're instantly spinning up a new running VM with that state. That's what we call forking, and it's a technology of the underlying virtualization infrastructure, or vSphere. And there are many per host of those. And then, of course, on top of that, you have the users, and there's one user per desktop, but each user logs on to one of these instant clones. And then again, it's just truth with modifications, because actually we can use this technology for RDSH hosts as well, where you could actually have, well, not many users per desktop, but many users per clone, because we can spin up virtual app servers for that. That is the instant clones. And so if we look at how the update process is on those, because you might want to update that operating system ever so often. Well, what we do is that you upgrade the master image. It's updated. We could actually do that using different technologies, but whatever technology you use, it's updated, and a new snapshot is created. And when you create the new snapshot, there's actually a wizard that'll guide you through, automatically update your parent VM, and the parent VM will then have a new image, and the desktop VMs, they are auto updated from the parent VM at next logon. And that actually in reality means that when people log off of these because they existed in memory, they disappear. And next time a user logs on, it's a new one made from the new parent image. So that's how instant clones work. And then of course we need applications in there. And the applications, some of them could be in the master image, but you'll find that using app volumes will highly improve the way you can deliver applications to end users, because you can create app stacks in here with app volumes that are per application or per department or whatever. So again, the components of a Windows VM is well, hardware, and then on top of the hardware you have the VMs, and the VMs consists, among other things, of a VMDK, which is most typically the C drive. So the VMDK lies on top of there, and if we look at that, the VMDK C:, it has the system files and maybe a few apps. This comes from the master image, typically. And then, of course, you need additional applications that we call app stacks, or applications, collections of applications. And these consists of VMDKs as well. So what we do here is that we attach these abstracts, we mount them inside your VM. So seen from a Windows point of view, these are natively installed applications that are in these different abstracts. You can assign one or many abstracts to one VM, and in that way you can get that combination of applications that you really want. Inside an abstract, you can have many applications. You can actually assign one application from an abstract to a VM with volumes for. And then from the user point of view, it just looks like a C drive. So they have now their applications in there. So if we look at how app volumes would work in a full-blown VDI environment, well, you have all these users with all their virtual desktops that are instant clones or not instant clones. It's not really important. And then you have all the different app stacks. You have perhaps one for human resources, another one for production apps or base applications or IT applications, whatever. And then when you assign a desktop for a user or a group of users, you kind of build this on the fly. They need this operating system, they need this combination of applications, and they need their user settings. And then they get, the combination of applications that they need to build their desktop and to do their work. And that's kind of it. Now the users, they have the virtual desktop with the operating system, with the applications that they're working on. And it makes life for administrators so much easier because you can get away with one golden image, maybe two depending, but probably you can get away with one golden image. And then of course there is the writable volumes that we can look at. So you get applications that is IT provisioned applications and the user has those. But what if the end user actually wants to go ahead and install their own applications? How can we deal with that? Because normally that would be difficult in a VDI environment, given that this one is destroyed when the user logs off. So how can we go ahead and do that? Well, we can create a VMDK file that is user specific. So it will follow the user. And that is called a writable volume. And it's user provisioned applications and settings. So apps, PSTs, OneDrive Sync, etc. can go to that writable volume. And when the user logs on, they get the applications they need from IT, and then they can get their own applications. So this will work in a lot of environments, really, really nice with these user installed applications. There are situations where you should think about whether you want to do that or not, but in this way you can actually allow people like developers or some people like that to install their own applications, or you can use them for containing user settings in there, some of the user settings. Normally the user settings would be in dynamic or be saved by Dynamic Environment Manager. And Dynamic Environment Manager, if we look at what a desktop consists of, you have the operating system, you have all the data and the files and the application settings. And then in here, you have a lot of settings that kind of binds everything together. And these settings are difficult to handle because in a physical environment, they are entangled into the operating system in a degree where it's difficult to untangle them again. And so we need to take care of these settings in order to provide a complete stateless desktop for the end users. And that's exactly what we do with user environment or Dynamic Environment Manager. And what we do is that we can save application configuration, user environment settings, and personalization. So that's part of what Dynamic Environment Manager does. And all those settings, they are saved in settings, which is basically a file share that you have a completely non-complicated flat SMB file share that can use DFS, where you put all these settings and they don't take up a lot of space. So logging into a desktop becomes really quick because these settings are loaded on based on a I need it now situation. So you don't kind of load everything up front, which you would normally do in a huge, big, fat logon script or something like that. But with Dynamic Environment Manager, what you actually do is you load the settings when you need them, because these are tiny little files, 2K or something, that resides in a file share. But with Dynamic Environment Manager, we also do policies. I'll get a little more into that in a minute. So if we look at how that would work, well, all the users, they get their settings, which are user specific. So now you have the virtual desktop, which is completely stateless. You have the applications that will make it the right application set for the end users. And then you have the settings and perhaps even the user installed applications. And so what Dynamic Environment Manager does is it personalizes the experience. So if you log on from one device and you kind of choose Word and you make some settings in here that you want to keep, and then you log off and you go to another device, or so, and the minute you log off or add another trigger, these settings are saved. And then if you go to another virtual desktop, well, these settings are still there. So they persist to virtual desktops at login. Other things that Dynamic Environment Manager handles are predefined settings, and you can configure that for each application. So you can go ahead for each application that you handle with Dynamic Environment Manager. You can go in and configure settings and say, this is my baseline for this application. You can define that this is how it's looking for every single user when they start up. And then you can decide whether they are allowed to change it or not allowed to change it. So if it's mandatory settings or not. So they can be enforced back to default, or you can allow for user personalizations. Settings imported at application launch. So you can have settings that are imported with direct flex, or that is what the settings are, imported when you launch the application. So they are not pre-imported, they are imported at application launch. And some of these settings, just take that one away, could be stuff like you map a specific network drive when you launch a specific application, or you map a printer that is only to be used with this application. So a real story from years ago, I used to work with the hospitals of Copenhagen, and they were looking at implementing VDI. And while I was there looking at one of their departments, actually, you know, where the blood donors go, I was at that department and looking at how they were working. And one of the employees down there, she was going to print a report, but she was using the same computer that they're using to print out the little labels for all those bags containing blood and the little test tubes containing stickers. And she, by accident, started printing a report out on these stickers. And these stickers are not exactly cheap because they have, you know, they're probably special made. And of course, she had to stop this report, but a lot of stickers were used there. And imagine that if she had had Dynamic Environment Manager back then, that printer would not have been mapped at all. She would not have access to that printer unless she had launched the application. And that is something we can do with Dynamic Environment Manager, saying that this printer should only be available while this application is running. And the minute you close that application, we can actually unmap that printer again. And we can do that with various settings. User-defined settings also persist across sessions, even with different Windows versions. So this is another way. And then, of course, backups are made of the configurations and can be restored with self-service support tools or help desk tools. This is really handy because if you look at what really often happens, I used to be in help desk many, many years ago. And what happens is that people will call you and say, oh, my SAP is completely foobar and I cannot use it. Somebody did something, and you ask them, did they change anything? And they didn't. When you ask them, maybe they did, and they are probably not lying to you, but they don't remember what they did. And now they don't know why it's looking all wrong. But what you can actually ask them to do themselves, or as a help desk can do, is that you can go in there and you can restore their settings from yesterday for that one application. Or you can ask them to do that themselves, and you can have different iterations of those configs saved. So you can actually go in for Mrs. Smith and restore the settings she had last time she knows that SAP was working. And then they will be back within seconds. You don't have to delete her profile. You don't have to do stuff like that. You can just get her settings back to what they were. Or you can let the users do that themselves. You manage user environment in a single simple interface. So that's kind of easy. And you can stop using multiple group policy tools and distributed scripts, because you can handle everything from dynamic environment manager. You can handle your group policy settings, and you can browse and search inside group policies, which is really nice. Makes it really easy to use group policies through that tool. And of course, you can target settings based on conditions. So inside Dynamic Environment Manager, we have condition sets that you can put up, where you can say, if this user is connecting from the inside of the network, we believe they have a huge amount of bandwidth available, so we will give them this user experience. On the other hand, we know that users that work in this specific place far away, and they are connecting through a wet washing line or something, tiny little bandwidth, we can actually see that and then have defined already a set of conditions that we will give them, which gives them maybe not the full-fledged features, but it gives them a good user experience, because we're not using bandwidth on unnecessary stuff given their conditions. That's one thing you can do inside conditions. There are so many other things you can put in there. You can look at IP addresses, or you can have different conditions on applications that cannot run together. Many things you can do in there. And also condition-based conditions can be triggered tasks within a session. So imagine that you're working in a heavily GDPR environment, and the users, they have access to sensitive information in their VDI, and then they disconnect the VDI and they go home and they want to connect from home. Then they might not allowed to have access to that information when they're not inside the office. And actually we can look at, we can trigger a new policy based on the location of that user. We can actually identify that they are now connecting from outside of the network, and then now a different condition set is for that user. Horizon Universal. Well, Horizon Universal, it is mainly a licensing, slightly management mode. So with Horizon Universal, you have a Horizon Cloud Control Plane. So you need this control plane in the cloud, because it's also handling the licensing. That's how we can do subscription. And now you're using Horizon 8 Universal, which is similar to Horizon 8, except for the licensing that lives out in the cloud. So brokering and monitoring is in the cloud, or you can have brokering on-prem. You still have vSphere or vCloud Foundation in the bottom. It can be on-prem or in the cloud. So you can decide where your licenses are going to be using Horizon Universal. That is the cool thing about Horizon Universal. You can have your installation in several places. It could be, like we mentioned here, VMC on AWS, Azure, VMware Solutions, or one of our 4,000 VMware cloud partners. So you can have those desktops anywhere. If we look at Horizon, the Horizon Cloud Control Panel, well, it handles licensing. It also handles deployment, brokering, monitoring, and administration. And for those of you familiar with Horizon, it looks very much like the Horizon administration console, the newer one, not the old Flex console. And it should have been Horizon 8 here. So with the Horizon Cloud Control Plane, what you can is that you can handle Horizon 7 Universal environments, Horizon DAS environments, or Horizon on Azure. And you can do that from one single cloud plane, control plane, meaning that your users or you can have an installation spanning one or more of these different ways of running Horizon. So you could have Horizon on VMC on AWS, which is VMware Cloud on Amazon, and you could have Horizon Cloud on Azure. And you can have environments in both places using the Horizon Cloud control plane to manage these installations. And you can have a user. The user connects to the broker. The broker then delegates the user a desktop, in this case in Horizon Cloud on Azure. And if Horizon Cloud on Azure goes down, well, that user is then given a new desktop in Horizon on VMware Cloud on Amazon. So you can have like a failover situation with these desktops, which is really cool. It could also be obviously one of our many VCPP partners. And then of course you have Horizon Cloud Analytics, which is real-time monitoring. You get alerts for common desktop and server issues. You get, you know, the utilization, contextual metrics, or you can look at a user and see what protocol are they using to access what client type and what location, and use that for troubleshooting your desktop or your user's environment. Horizon DaaS, that's slightly different. So you have still the Horizon Cloud control panel, and then you have Horizon Desktop as a Service, DaaS. It will give the end users the complete same experience as Horizon 8, but the binaries behind it are different. It's still running on VMware SDDC, it's running, or a VMware Managed Cloud, and it can be managed by VMware or one of our cloud partners. So you have the licensing, management, brokering, and monitoring in the Horizon Cloud control plane, and then you have the Horizon DaaS, the SDDC, and the VMware Managed Cloud. It can be managed by a VMware partner. And of course, you have that partner cloud down there. And if we just have one tiny little look at the architecture, and if some of you are sitting out there and thinking you would like to know more about this, please contact Thijs and he'll forward your request. Because what the Horizon DaaS architecture gives you is a cloud provider NOC. And in here you have the cloud provider management, and you have the tenant resource management in here, and you have the networks, ADs, DNS, NTP services, etc. And once this is stood up, you have a vCenter to manage, obviously. What you then can do is that you can provision customer environments. And once this whole thing is up, everything becomes a lot easier because it's truly multi-tenant, and you can then provision like customer A, perhaps running on dedicated networks. They might have hosted in network services, AD, DNS, DHCP, etc. And there is customer A management in there, and they can access using the unified access gateway, dedicated compute and storage. Customer B might also have dedicated networks, and then they might have a VPN because they have some of their services on-prem. So they can be different on the customers, and you provision one customer at a time. So that's what's in the Horizon DaaS architecture. And we don't have time to go into that in detail, but let me know if you need to know more about it. And then of course there's Horizon Cloud on Azure. Again, here is a hands-on labs you can go ahead and look at if you want to know more about Horizon Cloud Services on Microsoft Azure. So again, here you have the Horizon Cloud control plane that handles licensing, management, brokering, and monitoring. Then you have Horizon on Azure, which is managed by the Horizon Cloud control plane. You have the Azure hypervisor, which is native Azure. And then of course, Microsoft Azure down here. And what we typically see is that customers, they bring their own Azure. So this is inside the customer's own Azure environment where they can handle this, or you can deliver this to them. So you can actually have a situation where a customer would like to have maybe a consumption model inside Azure, and desktops in a cloud with one of our cloud partners, and maybe a few desktop on-prem. And everything can be handled by the Horizon Cloud Control Plane and the Horizon Universal License. So the Azure tenant here, if we look at that, you have Horizon Cloud Control Plane again, and then connecting to Horizon on Azure, and then you have the Azure tenant. And if we look at why we're doing this, well, Microsoft Azure, they have storage, compute, networking, database, and security, and then they have Windows Virtual Desktops. And on top of Windows Virtual Desktop, they can deliver Windows 10, Windows 10 Enterprise, multi-session, even Windows 7 and Windows Server. And then they have a few services on top of that. It's the RDP protocol. Management is via Azure Console and PowerShell, not very built out yet. There's very basic power management, and they have profile and application management using FS Logics. And you get a full-featured Windows client and others. So if you look at Horizon Cloud on Microsoft Azure, well, we do Windows 10 Enterprise and the same things here, but what we add on top is that, first of all, we have the multi-cloud control panel, we have a control plane, we have the cloud monitoring services, we have Workspace ONE Access that allows users to connect in a secure manner, the universal and intelligence, obviously. The universal broker that allows you to have a different environment with a different cloud provider. We have our Blast Extreme and PC over IP protocols. The ability to use app volumes and dynamic environment manager, so you can build the desktops on the fly. We have agent auto update, advanced power management, and this is a thing a lot of customers are looking at, because in that way they can lower their consumption inside Azure. And we have a very broad client and feature support in here. And we have our common interface for most management tasks in here, so you don't have to go PowerShell on it full blown. So there's a lot of value add in Horizon Cloud on Azure. And actually, we're seeing that Microsoft is collaborating quite a lot with us on this, because they know that the experience users get over here is not as good as that experience here. And when people move out into Horizon Cloud on Azure, they still get Windows 7 with free extended support if they have some of these Windows 10 devices. So, not far from finished now. So let me know if there are any questions in a second here. Well, is this enterprise ready? Well, it's been in the market for 11 years, and yes, it is enterprise ready. We have huge customer running on this. But some of the things that people are looking at when they're judging whether a system is enterprise ready, it's the remote experience, for instance, and we can do remote experience for any use case from any device almost. So we can deliver great user experience and application user experience through our Blast Extreme protocol, through our real-time audio video, through collaboration software. We have integrated printing and peripheral support, so we can give almost any use case in here. One of my customers is a company that designs wind turbines, and they have their headquarters in Denmark, and they have designers in Bangalore, and they don't want their database with all the detailed drawings to be present in Bangalore. They don't want any drawings to be present in Bangalore, but they want their designers to be able to work on them. And the reason for that is that they don't want to all of a sudden have cheap copies of their products rebranded and coming in from India. And so they have these designers or engineers based in India working through VDI on their wind turbine design. And it's working, and they are happy with that solution. That's one use case. There are tons of others. Another use case would be a university using Horizon desktops or Horizon on Azure, actually, to create exam or desktops that students can use for examinations. So desktops that are kind of contained where students can only use a few tools and not reach the internet, etc. And the desktops are actually only there during examination periods. Session collaboration is quite cool. We have that inside Horizon, which is it's the ability with Blast Extreme to actually share a session between two users. And we can do that using our session collaboration tool. It's really easy. It's tailored actually for troubleshooting interface for help desk, for instance. Oh, sorry, I'm mixing things up here. I thought there was a video coming up, but I hit that. So collaboration, we can do that with the Blast Extreme protocol. We can have users collaborating on desktops. So one user invites another user in so they can collaborate on a desktop. And then we have the Horizon Help Desk tool, which is tailored for troubleshooting. And it's just a tiny little application that the help desk people install on their main computer or one or many computers, and then they can actually request control into the user's desktop. So they're kind of related and kind of not. But the help desk tool is really nice, where you can actually really fast and easy get all the metrics, etc. On the user's desktop, which gives you really quick troubleshooting things. If something is peaking, the CPU is using a lot of resources, or the latency all of a sudden goes up, it allows the administrator to spend less time on issues that could be solved in the help desk. So this is for help desk people. And then one of the later features is that you can publish apps from the Windows 10 desktop, meaning that you don't have to have a remote session desktop host, but you can actually use a Windows 10 desktop to publish applications. So you just create a desktop pool, and you just kind of gives the option of either you're using this pool for a publishing application, or you're using it for VDI. So you can have the same set of desktops kind of being used in one pool for publishing application, and in another pool for actually connecting to a full-blown VDI. And the benefits is that you can publish applications that do not run on server OSs. You can publish Office 365 Pro. If you want to run applications on Windows 10, if you want to access other, the store applications, or applications with special device support, and also you have cost savings in there. So there's a reason to do that. And also perhaps maybe if we're looking into the future, this is what Microsoft is aiming at. They want people to do, using Windows 10 for publishing applications, so they can kind of get that part out of the server operating system, and maybe get to a state where the GUI on their servers is less. So by that was the words, a lot of them in a short time. And I will just go out of my presentation and see if there are any questions that Ben has not looked at. There are no questions.
No questions
at all. Did I kind of overwhelm all of you with so many words?
Oh, it's a large topic, but I think it was a very good presentation around the desktops and virtual applications. There is no question, and we are at the top of the hour. So I just want to say, if you do have any questions after this presentation, please reach out to your local error team, and they will be able to help you get those answered. Also, as I said yesterday, this is also for resellers to get into this program. It's not exclusive for cloud providers. So you have a great opportunity to go out and sell this to your customers, either you being a reseller or a cloud provider. So with that, we're looking forward to day 4 tomorrow, where we're gonna look at security. So that's gonna be exciting. So thank you for the presentation, and see you all.
A quick reminder, if you haven't signed up for VMworld, well, you still have time. It's next week. And the hands-on labs. This is where you find them.
Yeah. So can't stress it enough. Free VMworld this year. It's virtual. You can all be there. and it's going to be awesome. 2 days free, 2/3 days packed with goodness.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll see you all tomorrow, and have a great rest of your day.
See you.
Bye.